Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to Basic Engineering Mathematics chapter number 4 we are discussing, whose name is using a calculator, and here you can see that the interface of the calculator is right now here. And let's talk about the topics we are going to discuss today. And today we will try to introduce some new keys and their function on the calculator. So starting from the basic trigonometric functions, and you can see that trigonometric basically means measurements of angles, measurements of calculation in terms of the geometrical representation. For example, when we talk about the geometry, it means measurements of any angle. For example, the angle between the two corners, angle between a closed triangle, and any type of angles. So when we treat the angles, there are formulas, and there are the three basic terms that are used in case of the that are involved in the trigonometric functions, and these are the sine, cos and tan. Although there are other also available, but we will use only the three basics that are available. And you can see that first of all we have to locate the three basic keys on our calculator. This is the key for the sine function, and when I press this sine key, you can see that there is a bracket, and that shows that I have to mention here theta, that is the angle. And for example, I press here 9, it means that this is the sine, and then it separates this angle, and I have to close this bracket to get the answer, just pressing the equal sign. Sometime if I don't press this bracket close, you can see that still I am getting the answer. But remember that when I have I am in terms of the long calculations, in terms of the huge formulas calculations, in terms of the mega calculations, then we don't have if we don't close the bracket, then it will mess up with the other terms, so the answer may get then math error, other types of errors. So it is recommended that to make sure your practice and set your calculator like this, and set your hand on a calculator by closing the brackets, and make it your regular practice. So right now important thing is trigonometric further functions will be covered and discussed in details in the chapter number 21. As you know, we are on chapter number 4 right now using a calculator, and when we go further and reached on a chapter number 4, we will discuss this further details. And all the game is when I already explained of the angles. And when we talk about the angles, there are the two basic things: either it is in radians or either it is in degrees. So there are the two scales that are available to measure the quantities, and on a calculator you can see that this is not mentioned. For example, if I press here, how I can tell the calculator that this 9, for example, this is an angle sine 9, I want to calculate the sine at 9, but what the 9 is at degrees, 9 is the radians. How I can differentiate and tell the calculator to calculate in this sense? Simple, very simple. Just see on the top screen of the calculator in a subscript, very small r is shown in the screen right now. It shows that r shows that it is in radians mode, and if I simply type sine 9 and bracket close and I want the answer, it will take this 9 as it is in radians. So if I want to calculate the 9 and I want to told the calculator that I need 9 is in not in radians but 9 is in degrees. So just how I want to set up the calculator, then check this setup key, and here lies the setup key, and it is the secondary function of this key to open the setup. So just press the shift key, enter into the setup, just go and reach to this 3 and 4 option. The option at number 3 is select. If I press the number 3, and then it will select the degrees, and then if I press the option number 4 and key 4, then it will go into the radians mode. As my calculator was already in radians, so I will try to select here by pressing 3 to degrees mode. As you can see that now that R is replaced with D, so I am in degrees mode. And if now I again try to calculate the previous form, or just a new example, sine 3 in degrees, you can see that there is a different answer. Or sine 9, this is now in degrees. So we need to check first of all, either we are have in correct mood we want to calculate, or we are in wrong mood. This is very important. This is the first step while we are playing the game of the angles, or want to calculate the trigonometric functions as well. First of all, let's take a look at the example number 1. We want to calculate simply sine 38, but here it is not mentioned that it is in degrees or in radians, but here this is little sign like an O or a 0. It shows that this is a sign of the degrees. At the top subscript, you can see that it shows that it is in degree. First of all, the first step is make sure your calculator is in degrees mode. Yes, our calculator is in degrees mode. This D shows that our calculator is already in degree mode. Just press sine, then 38, bracket close, and press equals. This is our answer. And if we want to correct it to a certain decimal places, and we already know the process and we already discussed a number of times, so I'm not going to explain this again. Now we want to evaluate another function here, but you can see that here 5.3 tan, but in bracket 2.23, this is radians, and here RAD is the short form of the radians, so we have to make sure that our calculator is in radians mode. But here we can see that our calculator is in degrees mode. The main mistake students did right here in this episode is without watching, without sensing in the questions, students sometimes forget to check that our calculator is either in degree mode or radians mode, and they forget, and this is the biggest mistake they did ever. So first of all, we need to change the function of our calculator from degrees to the radians. Then just press 4 here. Now the small r shows that our calculator is in radians mode. So just press 5.3 and tan. Here it is the tan. This is sine cos tan, and 2.23. This RAD, we are not typing this. This is just to show that it is in radians mode, and this is the answer. If you want to correct it to a 4 decimal places, then this is the answer, and this is your homework exercise, and this is the answer. And these are the 3 basic keys for the sine, cos, and tan. And if you want to get their inverse function, and for example, I want to calculate 1 over sine. If we want to calculate the other functions, 1 over sine, 1 over cos, 1 over tan, and we are not going to by pressing this key, and because our calculator has their basic functions, and just pressing this sine inverse. And if we want to calculate the inverse function, that we already discussed the inverse functions in details in the previous episodes, and in this episode we discussed the inverse function of the sine, inverse function of the cos, and inverse function of that. For example, I want to calculate the inverse sine 3, and this is a math error. This value can be calculated in the radians mode, and if I change this to the degrees mode is mostly used mode. You can see that I'm not still entering the wrong value. If I change my value, you can still see that this is the inverse function, and inverse function has their own limitations. For example, if sine 0, it has a minimum value here 0, and cos 90 has a minimum value. This is another discussion, but right now we don't want to enter into the discussion of this mode. Moreover, if we want to calculate the different values of cos inverse, tan inverse, we just need to press this is I want to told you, for example, 1, and different types of values, and they have their own limitations. When we will discuss in details, then we will also cover them, but right now this is the what we want to tell you, that the calculator has the 3 basic functions, and that can be also be used to as shift and inverse functions. So further discussion will be continued next time. Watch, learn, grow. See you next time.